All right. Välkomna tillbaka till Carnegies hälsovårdsseminarium här. Nu har det blivit dags för Ascelia Pharma och Magnus Corfitzen. Go ahead, Magnus, the scene is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Ludvig. It's great to be here and give you all an update on Ascelia Pharma and how we are making progress towards some extremely exciting milestones in 2025. So I will be making a number of forward-looking statements during my presentation. So Ascelia Pharma is dedicated to improving the lives of people living with rare cancer conditions. And we have two drugs in our development. Our lead program has now advanced to registration phase. It's a first-in-class product for a limited patient population globally that are in need of better options than they have today. And the global addressable market opportunity is $800 million that we're targeting. The other program we have is Oncoral. It's a unique patented tablet formulation of irinotecan to treat solid tumors. We are initially looking at gastric cancer, but have opportunities even beyond that. So our company is based in Malmö in Sweden, and we're traded on Nasdaq Stockholm since 2019. First, I'll go into Orviglance, and then I'll move on with Oncoral later in the presentation. So we're really excited about Orviglance, and here's why. We're targeting a very well-defined patient population that are in need of better opportunities for liver imaging. The global addressable market opportunity is $800 million, and we have completed the clinical development. We have completed 9 clinical studies with consistent good efficacy and safety results. Our manufacturing, which is done by an external party, is at commercial scale, so we can supply the market once we get the approval. We're now in the regulatory phase. I'll come back to the milestones that we have, and we are heading towards commercialization. And as we have stated, we want to work with a partner that have commercial infrastructure, so they will be ready to launch the product when the approval becomes available. So let me take one step back and talk about what patients we are addressing. In cancer care, there is a massive problem with cancer in the liver. In particular, metastasis, which is in the US and Europe, it's 90% of cancer in the liver. It's not starting in the liver, it's starting in some other organ, could be colon, could be breast, lung, gastric, and then it metastasizes, it spreads to the liver. 10% of the cancers in US and Europe is primary liver cancer, which starts in the liver. In Asia, the ratio is 80-20, so still the vast majority is liver metastasis. Both represent significant problems in clinical practice. So the best way to deal with this is having an enhanced image. MRI is the most sensitive, the best method, and a contrast-enhanced MRI is the ideal way to image this. And for most patients, this is not a problem. They will have an injection into the bloodstream with a gadolinium-based contrast agent. The gadolinium is chelated to avoid toxicity. But in some patients, in particular patients with severely impaired renal function, there is a risk of nephrogenic systemic fibrosis, which is a potentially fatal side effect. As a consequence, there are warnings on all gadolinium products that are approved for this condition, and it highlights that the patients at high risk are the patients with severe renal impairment or acute kidney injury. Orviglance, our product, is based on manganese, so it doesn't have this risk associated with gadolinium. It's an oral product, so the patient will drink it, and we have data demonstrating that it goes to the liver and very, very tiny amounts go into the bloodstream, which we again consider not to be a problem because we already have manganese in our bloodstream. So it's a natural trace element, and we even need it for certain enzymatic processes. So the safety profile is vastly different. And for the patients with severe renal impairment where they have the risk of nephrogenic systemic fibrosis, that's the patient population we target, and we have orphan drug designation from the FDA. So some of you who have followed us have probably seen the next slide here, but let me give an example of what Orviglance does. So to the left-hand side, you see an unenhanced MRI. You see the structure here to the left, that is the liver, and you see some black structures within the liver. Those are blood vessels and bile ducts, and a radiologist would easily be able to ascertain that. So the patient will, in this study, then had Orviglance and had another MRI. And you can see to the right that the liver cells, the hepatocytes, become much more bright. They do that because hepatocytes are able to absorb a large amount of manganese, and the manganese makes the healthy cells bright. You can see with the orange circle a black structure that is a metastasis, and because the metastasis, it came from, you could say, another organ, and it could be the colon, could be the breast. I don't know what this was, the primary tumor, but that is unable to take up the manganese, so it will stay black. And that's how it's much easier and with much higher certainty that you can diagnose the patient accurately, make the right treatment decision, whether it's surgery or drug therapy or whatever. So this is one great example, but as mentioned, we have 9 clinical studies. I'm not going to go through all of it, but last year we completed our phase 3 clinical study. The result was very solid. We had all 3 readers scoring highly statistical significant on the primary endpoint. We also saw a safety profile that was consistent with previous studies, which means mostly some gastrointestinal related side effects. 86% of them were mild. So again, no serious adverse drug events. So a good profile in terms of efficacy and in terms of safety. That means we are at the next phase. The next phase is getting the drug approved. We are in the process of putting all our clinical, non-clinical, and manufacturing data together in an NDA submission. We have the full clinical study report. We completed that in early Q4. We have announced that we will have conclusions from an FDA meeting here in Q1. We continue to expect that. And then we have an NDA submission in the middle of this year. So a very exciting time and busy time for the Ascelia team and the people we work with. So that is the way to bring Orviglance to the patients, initially in the US, other geographies, as we bring along partners. When we get to market, obviously, it's important that we address and we bring it out to the patients in need, and that is a sizable commercial opportunity. Almost half of the global market here is in the US, which is also why we are initially prioritizing the US. We've also said that we want to commercialize with partners. Those discussions and process is ongoing, and obviously it's difficult to tell how that will develop and when and how that will turn out. But we continue to have a lot of focus on the partnering activities. So what is really important in order to demonstrate the market is that there is a medical issue. We have shown that consistently, and it's available in the regulatory filings, expert meetings, and publications. But it's also important that this market research we've done show that a lot of radiologists and other doctors, oncologists, are aware of potential issues with gadolinium. So we're not the first to tell them that there are potential safety concerns. It's something that they are already aware of. And even in this survey, we found that 16% of them had experience with NSF at some point in their career. We also talked with them about, or asked them, what do you do when you have one of those patients and you need to do an MRI? And what they say in this market research is that the vast majority of these patients will have an unenhanced MR. So think back to the pictures I showed you a couple of minutes ago. They will have the left-hand side of the image when there's an opportunity to have the right-hand side of the image. Obviously, we think that's a great advantage. And the advantage is so significant that you can see here that in some cases, they find the need for a contrast-enhanced image so significant that they run the risk of gadolinium-associated side effects, even in the highest risk population. We think Orviglance will provide high-quality images, good safety profile, and no gadolinium-associated safety risks. So we think that is a very strong value proposition for our product in the target population. So as mentioned, we are focusing on the patients at highest risk from NSF, but there are also some other concerns about gadolinium. One of them is that even patients with perfectly healthy kidneys, when they are injected with gadolinium, some of that gadolinium will be deposited in the body. That has been known for a long time. But within the last 5-10 years, it has gotten a lot of research that some of this gadolinium heavy metal is deposited in the brain. And obviously, heavy metal deposition in the brain is not a good thing. There is no clear link to clinical symptoms, but obviously it's something that you would rather avoid. There are a lot of publications about water contamination of gadolinium. So when you measure gadolinium in the water, and you do that going back to decade-old water samples, you see a very dramatic increase of gadolinium in drinking water. That is consistent, and if it's close to medical institutions that do MRI, the increase is higher. So the way the industry has responded to that, because the gadolinium market is dominated by 4 large companies, is that some of them are developing lower dose gadolinium and saying gadolinium is not great, so we need to inject less, and then we can still have a good image. GE Healthcare is the only one of the 3 that have explicitly stated that they see a future with no gadolinium. So they are developing other options, and they have put into completed phase 1 development of an injectable manganese agent. We see that as extremely exciting. It would be complementary. It's not a liver-specific agent like Orviglance. So we think the more people who are excited about manganese, the better for patients and for us. So we're talking a lot as part of the, you could say, commercial preparations. We are very busy at the conferences, and we're getting a very high acceptance rate when we send abstracts for the conferences. So we've been at the nephrology conference, Kidney Week. We had our phase 3 data being presented by Elvin Silva from Mayo Clinic at the RSNA large conference. We had 2 presentations at the Society of Abdominal Radiology in the US and Arizona just last month. And we have acceptance of 3 abstracts, of which 2 are presentations at the European Society of Gastrointestinal Radiology. So this is like a really strong interest that we see in the scientific community, that now we are having an alternative to gadolinium for these patients. So that concludes the Orviglance part of the presentation. I'll spend a couple of minutes on Oncoral, which we are equally excited about, even though it's not as far in development. So the concept of Oncoral is to make a better drug and get better patient benefits from the irinotecan molecule. Irinotecan is approved as an infusion product given every 3rd week today. It's a chemotherapeutic agent. It has a very nasty side effect profile, but it has a good efficacy in certain cancer types. A lot of patients need to discontinue treatment, not because of lack of effect, but because of intolerable safety. So what we're doing is, instead of giving a very large dose every 3rd week, we have been able to formulate it as a tablet, so we can give daily doses. And we've proven in 2 phase 1 studies that it works, it's absorbed, and we get an acceptable variability, which is super important. So by giving daily doses, we believe we have the potential to improve efficacy and improve safety, and that will make a difference to a number of patients. Initially, we will be looking at gastric cancer, and we would like to combine. We've designed a study where we're combining Oncoral together with Lonsurf, which is a product owned by Taiho Oncology, a big Japanese company. So what you can see to the left is an animal study where we show that the combination of Lonsurf, and this is you could say IV irinotecan, but the efficacy of that combination seems to be synergistic. We think that is very encouraging. And we've made a small clinical collaboration for a phase 2 study where we would look at the effect in humans in terms of improving efficacy with this combination. So the IND has been approved, but we have prioritized all our resources on Orviglance, and once we are moving forward on our milestones with Orviglance, we look forward to getting the Oncoral project moving forward. Gastric cancer is the initial indication that we're looking at right now. But as you can see here, there are lots of different tumor types where irinotecan has been proven in one way or another that it could be efficacious. In particular, if we demonstrate the value of, you could say, a more frequent dosing, daily dosing, these are some opportunities that we could look more closely into. So with that, I'd like to wrap up my presentation and then, you could say, just reiterate the milestones that we have ahead of us. We have completed the phase 3 clinical program, the entire clinical program. We are engaging with the FDA here in Q1, and we expect to report the outcome of that meeting here in Q1, and then make the NDA submission in the middle of this year. We're also preparing for launch. Not as an Ascelia-led launch, but we are speaking at conferences, we're creating awareness, we're doing some other things that is important for having a successful launch. But we expect the bulk of the work to be driven by a commercialization partner. and the activity, the process of engaging with those partners is ongoing. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Magnus. So the elephant in the room is obviously the NDA process and the partnership discussions. So Q1, you say that you will conclude or you'll announce the conclusions from the meeting. That's any day now.
It is Q1, yes.
What can you say about this?
Yeah, I mean the way it works is that you have a lot of preparation going into an FDA meeting. You submit material months in advance, and then you have the meeting, and then following the meeting you will have meeting minutes, and it's the meeting minutes that is what counts. The meeting minutes will be sent by the FDA to the company within 30 days after the meeting, and obviously there's no kind of guidance except that it's less than 30 days. So with that, we expect to be able to announce results in Q1.
Right. And anything on the partnership discussions?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work. I mean, any company looking for a partnership deal, it's a lot of work. So what we have is that we have a clear unmet medical need. We have an orphan drug designation. We have a very strong clinical package. Got a great handle on manufacturing. So all the bits and pieces are there. So it's about bringing as many potential partners as far in a dialogue as possible and see what kind of opportunities that arise from that process, and hopefully negotiate a very good deal, at least the best deal you can get. Yeah. So I think that's the plan. That's what we're executing on and working on every day. Yeah.
And what are you prioritizing in a deal? Is it upfront or royalties, or how is your thinking here?
I think it will depend. I mean, it's getting the best deal. There's obviously, in this market, there's a high cost of capital. We certainly want somebody to give an upfront, but the biggest value is in we're so close to the market, which means that the royalties in our deal is going to be very different compared to if you have a preclinical program. Then the royalty rate is it's important, but when you do your model or other people are doing their models, the royalty rate doesn't really affect that much. So it's about finding something where we can incentivize the partner to invest as much as possible in a successful commercialization. That will drive the total value very high. Right. And then of course we want to make sure that we get milestones in a way that supports that. But obviously we want to get paid immediately and we want to get paid a lot later. So it's we need to see how we can figure that out.
Obviously, yeah. So you talk a lot about the FDA and the US market. How is your communication with the EMA and what's the plan here?
So we've said before that we want markets outside the US is going to be led by a partner. Whether we have a supportive role remains to be seen, depending on the partner and the partnership structures, etc. But that's something that will be driven with a partner. I mean, we're a small company. Getting a successful NDA process through is a big piece of work. And you could say with the NDA submission, there's a lot of things that you can sort of you could say translate easily to an NDA submission format. So I think from that perspective, it could be a rapid follow-on if needed.
Right, but have you had any discussions with EMA regarding the pathway to market approval?
Yeah, we've had meetings with EMA.
Yeah. All right, so I interpreted it as Oncoral that you're ready to initiate a phase 2 trial when you want. Like if you have financing, then you can basically just push the button and start it.
Yeah, that's we had the IND approved. We had some national approvals from the countries where we plan to initiate when we were planning to initiate the study. So you could say no issues from a regulatory side at sites lined up. It's a couple of years ago, so I think it'd probably be prudent to just do a recap and just check with the latest developments in the area to make sure that we have a very attractive protocol for the patients. So it's exciting for them to participate in the trial. So there's no. You would say there are no. Again, it's a lot of hard work, some investments, but I think it's a really exciting opportunity to be able to give irinotecan on a daily basis, and that can help some patients. So great opportunity.
Yeah, perfect. Last question about the priority review in the US. Is this your base case that you will get one or that you won't get one, or what's your reasoning here?
I don't know. I think it also depends on the partner. I think the most important thing is, you would say, the exclusivity of Orviglance is the orphan exclusivity. So it goes from the date of approval, and then we have 7 years, potentially extended to 7.5. So the most important thing is that when we get the approval, that the team is ready to launch and get going from day one. And if we have, let's say, a partnership announced and the partner is not ready to launch with a priority review timeline, I don't want to start eating on the exclusivity period. Then I want to have a later, you could say, launch date, and that means not a priority review. So I think it's about maximizing the size of the opportunity more than getting the approval as early as possible.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. Great. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be here.